Welcome to Lesson 8 of MySci Unit 15, Observing Weather Patterns. In Lesson 8, students will answer the question, what can climate data tell us about the world? Students will compare weather data at different locations around the world. They figure out that there are different climate regions around the world, and each location has its own patterns used to help predict long-term weather. In the Engage portion of this lesson, students will revisit the Read Aloud book on the same day in March. Students will engage in a class discussion about if they have or would ever like to travel to any of the places referenced in the book and how they would know what types of clothes to pack. Next, frame the lesson for the students. Introduce them to a climograph. Explain that a climograph is a graphical model that shows the average precipitation and temperature at a given location on Earth. Climographs can be used to understand climates around the world. In the Explore portion of this lesson, students will be broken into groups. Each group will be provided with a climograph. The climographs match locations from the book on the same day in March, with the exception of Fairbanks, Alaska. Each student group should also be provided with daily temperature and precipitation charts. Project these teacher examples on the board and use the examples to explain the components of a climograph. For example, students should recognize that the data depicted is average monthly data over many years. The data represented by the bars show the average precipitation for each month. The scale on the left y-axis correlates with this data. The data represented by the line shows average temperature for each month. The scale on the right y-axis correlates with this data. Next, check for student understanding of analyzing climographs by asking guided questions about these teacher examples, Santiago, Chile, and Helsinki, Finland. The guiding questions are found in the teacher pages. Students will consider what the weather will be like in March in both locations using evidence from the graphs to support their answer. Additionally, they will use the graphs to make predictions about what the current weather might be like and check their predictions using current weather reports such as the Weather Underground website. Students should recognize that weather is what happens day to day, but climate is what occurs over many years. In the Explain portion of the lesson, students will analyze and interpret the graph for the location that they have been assigned. Students will describe what an average day in March and July is like in their assigned location and what the best time of year to visit would be. They will also create pictorial models of what it would look like in their location in March, June, September, and December, corresponding with the seasons of the year. In the Elaborate portion of this lesson, students will share the climate data for their locations. During each presentation, students should record the data in this daily temperature and precipitation chart found in their student journal page. After all presentations are complete, the students should engage in a class discussion about any patterns that they have observed in the data. In the Evaluate portion of this lesson, students will use the climate data collected to answer the question, what type of weather do you like best? Based on that, which place would you choose to visit and when would you choose to visit? Why do you say that? Teachers should look for students to explain climate trends and their location referencing the actual data. By the end of this lesson, students will have read line and bar graphs to describe climate in various locations and compare climate data with actual weather data for various locations.